Welcome to episode number 1 of Beyond the Bushels. Our first guest is Laura Ehnle, a third-generation farmer from central Illinois. She and her husband took over the farm back in the 1990s. She's got a great perspective of family, legacy, and what it takes to keep a farm running. Without further ado, let's get this started. Laura, I appreciate you joining. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Glad we could get something scheduled. You said you're going on a trip next week?
Yes, we have a cabin in Minnesota, and if the guys get done spraying this week, we're heading that direction.
What part of Minnesota is the cabin in?
It's about 2 hours north of Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Nice to get away a little bit.
Yep. We're hoping to do a little fishing and a little relaxing.
That's cool. I know the focus of this podcast is going to be about farming, but there's definitely a lot more that goes into farming than just the farming operation, right? It all starts with the family. Can you share a little bit about your family, not necessarily about farming?
We bought this cabin about 15 years ago. It's the only place our kids wanted to go to anymore on a trip. All the resorts down there were kind of closing down. We bought it almost too late in life, but we always say that life's kind of backwards. Couldn't afford it when they were younger. They all still find a way to slip up to it regardless, so even as they're all working.
Tell me a little bit about your family, kids, grandkids.
Yeah, we've got 3 kids. We've got 2 daughters and 1 son. They all have a passion for the farm. They're all grown, obviously, have businesses of their own, as well as our son helps us on the farm. We have 3 grandchildren. Our oldest has 3. 2 little boys, 6 and 5, and we got a little sister who's almost 2, doing her best to keep up with them all.
Is everybody pretty close together, close to the farm?
Yes, we're very fortunate. I'd say everybody lives within a half hour of us. Yeah, my daughter makes it a pretty good priority to get the kids out to the farm, especially in the fall, riding the combine and auger wagon. I don't know how much they really like it for the farm, but the first question they do is they point at that lunchbox, say, "What's that?" You better have snacks packed.
You got to be prepared for those kids. Growing up on a farm, I don't have any kids of my own, but my dad was always farm first, more so than family. But once he had those grandkids, it was like a light switch. It'd be nice to get your perspective on raising your own kids versus grandkids, because every grandparent's different around their grandkids versus their kids.
Yeah, you can love on them, spoil them, send them home. It's wonderful. I will say our farm was a family farm. Obviously in harvest, things get a little hectic, and my husband maybe didn't make it to a game or something like that, but I always tried to get out of the tractor in time to make it to a game. They all have an appreciation for it. I can remember one fall, I think both girls were off to college, and as soon as they found out we were harvesting, they all showed up. That's just something kind of cool about that. I think it just shows that we've kind of made it a fun thing. My husband's got a sense of humor, and if nothing else, they got to come home a little bit for Dad.
There you go.
That's something we kind of look forward to when we get into retirement, is being able to spend a little bit more time doing things. When they come to the farm now, my husband, those 2 little boys, they're all about whatever Grandpa's doing. We got our old 3-wheelers, and he'll get them out there, and he'll tell them, "Now, first thing we got to do is we got to check the oil here. You get some checking the oil and that kind of thing." We got a lot we can give them yet.
When they were younger, you made it to all their games, but were you able to get away and travel when they were younger?
I can't say we traveled a lot. The girls were doing a lot of basketball in the summers. We bought a lot on a lake about 45 minutes from here, so we would just sneak over there, and my husband would say, "Let's get our work done, and we'll leave at 2 o'clock and head to the lake in the summer." So we did a lot of that, went to a lake a few hours away, and then we try to slip up to the one we now have a cabin on.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Life goes by pretty fast.
Oh, it does.
I wish I would have enjoyed a lot more of my younger years out of college instead of spending every weekend back at the farm, but it means a lot to me. Like your family, you miss out on a lot of stuff, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yep.
How did spring go for you? How is this growing season going for you so far?
It was an early spring. We probably got down in record time. We had all the beans planted, I think, in our first go around, and then had a little break before we got all the corn planted. Everything's off to a pretty good start. We're a little dry here. Could maybe use a little rain. Guys are spraying the beans right now, the post spray, and so hopefully the end till we do a little fungicide if necessary.
I'm not that familiar with Illinois. Can you describe a little bit landscape, layout of where you're at in Illinois? You don't have to be specific on location.
We're in Peoria County, and I say we farm some of the best ground in Peoria County and some of the poorest. We got the Illinois River. There's kind of a bluff, so as you get towards it, the land gets a little rollier and more timber soil, and it needs a little extra care sometimes. But yeah, otherwise we farm some good black dirt as well.
There's some parts in Illinois, I'm not sure which region, I've heard that just grow some killer soybeans.
Oh yeah. We had some very good soybeans this past year. Well, actually, we set a record on beans.
Were you expecting it?
We started planting our beans early a number of years ago. Actually, our son's 28. When he was probably a junior in high school, my husband went out and bought a second planter. When he got out of school at the end of the day, he was to get on that planter and start planting beans. Then as he got out, just made a priority. In fact, he always starts before the corn planter goes. And I think that early planting has, at least in this region, makes a big difference on yield. We can almost go down the calendars to when they're planted. The yield just keeps falling off a bushel or two. Kind of interesting, isn't it?
The reason I asked if you're expecting it, I don't know if you experienced a couple of those drier years, maybe 2-3 years ago, where everybody's expecting subpar crop yields and is probably record yields. So I think some of these crops can actually handle a little bit drier soil conditions than they can wet. I don't know if you've experienced that where you're at.
We would agree with that completely. In fact, our son's sideline business is doing field drainage tile. We keep adding more every year.
It's amazing how you can be farming for so many years and you never quite figure it out, do you?
And just when you do, Mother Nature throws a curve at you. That's the fun of it, the thrill of it. You go into each spring, it's a new start on the year, and the excitement of you going out, working the ground and planting that seed. And it takes a little faith in there that all's going to work out, but some of it's just the excitement of what's going to happen and being able to pivot. I don't know, it's all kind of fun. I think it just gets in your blood.
If you have the expectations that you're going to be able to have control over your success, I mean, you do to an extent, but farming is just so challenging where you can't control the weather, the conditions, the commodity prices. If you have to have complete control over everything, farming is probably not the right business for you.
Yeah, I always kind of joke it's really a dumb profession. You throw out all this money and hope you get it back plus another dollar with so much out of your control. But like I said, it's just something that just gets in you.
Yeah, you really have to look long term. You might lose money one year, but you can't lose faith, like you said, in what your mission or what your goal is. You just kind of have to look over a 10-year window. You're obviously still in business, doing very successful. So whatever you're doing, you must be doing right. You just got to keep grinding, don't you, Laura?
If you don't enjoy that grind, you're in the wrong profession. We're getting a little older. It's getting a little harder sometimes. We get a little more tired.
You mentioned you're a third-generation farmer. Can you kind of give us a little background about that? Maybe first generation, second generation. Is it your parents or your husband's parents?
It's my parents. My great-grandfather immigrated here from Germany, started a wholesale grocery business, and along the way tried to help get his kids started in life. And he bought my grandfather this 160 acres that we live on now. My grandmother and grandfather, newly married, moved out to the farm and just got started. They raised 6 kids on the farm, 5 boys and 1 girl. My dad's the youngest. I'd say this has been about the late 40s, early 50s. The kids were deciding what to do in life, and 4 of the 5 moved out west immediately. Another one joined them later, but they all went out there and found their own success. Some of them starting businesses of their own too. So that left my father home on the family farm. But what's kind of interesting about all that is I have 17 cousins out west, and some of them I've only met once or twice in my life.
Really?
Yes, but out of those 17 cousins, 9 of them have made arrangements to come back to the family farm and just visit it.
Really?
Isn't that kind of crazy?
It is. That's awesome.
To think that their parents left at such a kind of a young age, and probably in their 20s sometime, and wanted to come back and see what it was all about. Some of them spent a few hours with us. Some of us spent a few days with us. And the last one, he was 65 years old when he came back. There was something in that generation that the stories they told kept their interest, right?
Like you said, it just kind of gets in your blood. I farm a little bit. My brother does most of the work, like 30 acres. But even though I'm working outside of the farm, I still have all those memories from a kid, or you hear the stories and it just sticks with you.
Well, the last one, when he was back, he was FaceTiming his dad while he was here. And he's like, yeah, go in that right door of that barn and look in there. That's where I used to have to feed the animals. But it was just kind of fun that he could give his son a guided tour from his perspective.
That is pretty cool. Any of your brothers and sisters make it back at all?
My sister lived just across the border in Wisconsin. My brother's nearby. So my sister doesn't so much. She used to a lot more when her kids were younger, bring them back to the farm. My nephew just used to love to jump in the combine for a couple of days with Grandpa. And yeah, my brother brings his grandson out more just to ride the toys that we got. But it's still fun. We have a fish fry every summer usually, and we try to time it. They live in Kansas City now, my niece and her kids. So we try to time it when they're going to be up. And we like to bring people back to the farm. We think it's important people know their roots.
There's a lot of pride in the farm, and I think it's pretty common for farmers to expand that pride and share it with other family members, even though they're not actively involved. There's just something prideful about being on the farm.
I guess my dad, he farmed until 1994. He said when he got his first 200 bushel crop, he was retiring. So he did. But prior to that, my dad had open heart surgery in 1988. He'd went in for angioplasty, and they ended up having to do an emergency bypass on him. This was in March. And my husband, by then I married him. He's a local boy. Worked construction for his dad, but he worked for a farmer. He had grandparents that farmed. So he stepped in to plant the crop that year, and then just kind of kept getting more and more involved. That's how we ended up on the farm.
I bet you wouldn't have it any other way, would you?
It all turned out the way it was supposed to, I guess, right?
Exactly. Did your husband immediately pick up the passion, or did it just grow on him over time?
Well, he always kind of had the passion. I mean, he loved working with the local farmer, but that wasn't going to be a long-term in his best interest, I think. But yeah, he always enjoyed going up. He spent a lot of time up at his grandfather's farm. I don't know so much farming, but just being around it. So yeah, he's definitely got the bug. There's just so much to farming that people don't understand. I mean, they don't realize how complex it is, especially today with all the technology. And yeah, you have to wear so many hats. And I don't think people really understand that. They just think we're some hillbillies out here. We up at our cabin, most of the people that are our neighbors, they're all weekend warriors. They live and work in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And yeah, we've got this one neighbor, and I know he just thinks, you guys are just a couple hillbillies. I don't know what I think of you. And he doesn't have a clue what goes on behind us, and that's okay.
So what year did you take over the farm, you and your husband?
1995.
1995. How was the transition? You mentioned your husband kind of got started a little bit slow, hopped in when somebody was needed, and kind of gradually stepped in. Can you kind of walk us through that transition?
He started putting on all the anhydrous for my dad. My dad farmed with Fords his entire life. After my husband was sent out to the field for working the dust, he bought the first cab tractor to the farm, and my dad ran that, and he bought the second cab tractor to the farm within just the last few years of his farming. They just got along. Sometimes I think the father-son-in-law thing probably works better than the father-son thing. Everybody positions themselves a little bit better, maybe, than father-son, who might just say what they think off the top of their head. So the transition actually went fantastic. My dad still worked the ground in the spring, but my husband started doing all the planting then, and my dad would haul for my husband in the fall. So he helped for, I don't even know how many years, till my mom's health started failing and he felt he needed to be around. So the transition actually could not have went any smoother if you tried. So as we think about succession, we think about how much harder it is, just the dollars involved, the capital involved, the operation has grown. It's just a totally different scenario.
Was the succession plan from your dad to you and your husband, was that gradual, or is it just, okay, next year it's all on you guys?
Pretty much next year, it's all on you guys. I mean, he was around if he wanted, but, well, I shouldn't say that. He was starting to travel a lot with his motorhome, go to Florida all winter long, take a good vacation in the summer. But I would say it was pretty much, here it is, take over. Here's my equipment. You're going to buy it out over 5 years, and that's how it went. Yeah, we kind of laugh how easy it was. We didn't really lay out anything, didn't make any long plans. This is just how it is, and I guess got to have a little luck, and all worked out.
So seeing my dad and my brother kind of transition, my dad's a little bit difficult, so it's not really a smooth transition. Even though my brother's taken over a lot of stuff, he still has to make all the decisions. When you took over, did he just completely step to the side and trust you, or was he still trying to make some of the decisions?
I always tell my kids, the father I had, the grandfather you got, they were two totally different people. My dad was a great guy, but on the farm, he could get pretty tense and intense. And if you'd have told me that my dad would have stepped away as easily as he did, I would have never believed it in a million years. I would say probably the only thing he did is if he thought Tony should have been started planting, he kind of like come over and drop a few hints. And my husband says, that was a big learning curve in the beginning, just how proactive you have to be ready on day one when it's time.
So are you getting ready to go through a transition, or is that in the future?
We are. We're not sure when. Just a few years down the road, though. We're not going to hang on forever. My dad retired, and we took over the farm when we were 30, 31. Our son's 28. But by getting to take over at that point in time, I feel like we got a chance to get ahead. If you're not getting the reins to your 45, 50, what is happening on so many farms, that generation doesn't have a chance to do their own thing, to get ahead their own way. And so I think it's important. We took advantage of it and really appreciated the opportunity to get a good start while we were young. We'd both worked off farm. I was still working off farm when we took over full time. And I think that's just important, at least from our perspective.
On another podcast, I read that somewhere around 75 to 80% of farmers across the U.S. actually have a full-time job.
I can believe that. If you're probably sub 1,000, you probably almost have to have another job doing that. And healthcare is such a huge issue for farmers that people have no idea being self-employed and have to buy your own health insurance. And that's probably my campaign message. I go anywhere in the medical and they're talking about it. I remind them that our premiums are $30,000 a year. They were 40 till we changed, and you got a $8,500 a year deductible. And people don't realize that. That's a huge cost to an operation.
Yeah, I don't think people fully understand the risk with farming. If I don't want to make this about dollars and cents, but just for example, for people that aren't familiar with the farm, a combine, a brand new combine with heads, trailers, and stuff, you could be looking at $1 million. And if you think about the risk that just goes into equipment and land, there's got to be something that drives a passion enough to take that much risk.
Yep, I agree. Hey, we're just crazy, aren't we?
Or crazy. Yeah, there you go.
No, I think it's just, like I said earlier, I think it's just something that gets in your blood, and there's just no better way. Well, you have to love self-employment, the freedom that comes with that. Obviously, there's a lot of obligations that come with that, and it's just such a wonderful way to raise a family. By the time our kids came along, there wasn't the manual labor on a farm anymore. We were out of the livestock. We had some cattle, and people don't weed beans anymore because they're drilled or in 15-inch rows and things like that. So we kind of invented work for our kids just to learn that work ethic because we thought that was important.
That's a good transition into what I'd like to ask you. So you've been around the farm. You mentioned having to pull weeds and stuff like that. Over your time at the farm, what are some of the biggest changes, whether it's technology, lifestyle? It changes pretty exponentially. Even the further along we get, I always say technology creates more technology. Describe the changes from when you started farming until now.
I guess I'm going to start from when my dad farmed. I mean, just the size of equipment. You know, my dad farmed with 40/20s, farmed 700 acres with 40/20s. He was probably still an uncommon guy then. Most people had started to transition to it. But the size of the equipment, the size the operation has to grow to be sustainable is another thing. I think the biggest change and the part that I love the most, I mean, it gives me headaches, but I just love the technology. That keeps farming exciting, interesting, new challenges, new learning. I just think that's just really fun.
I've been meaning to ask you, you mentioned these 40/20s. Do you have any of them around the farm yet?
Absolutely. They'll never leave us as long as I'm alive.
Isn't that incredible? My dad still has the first tractor my grandpa ever bought brand new. Is a 1958 Alice Chalmers D17 on LP and open cab. Bought it the year my dad was born, and it'll stay there forever. Do you still run these 40/20s, or they just kind of sit around?
One of them's got a loader tractor on, so they do that. We go mowing. We still do some, put the batwing mower on it and mow. If you're using a bin or something, you might throw it on the auger. They're not doing any real serious work, but they're still doing something. We still have the old M that my dad started farming with. My husband jokes we're going to have to build another shed to keep some of my artifacts that I think that we got to keep. When these cousins come back, they think that's cool to see that. It's almost like a way you can show, well, you can be able to show our grandkids that this is what great grandpa started on and this and this. And I just love that part.
It's just something about the legacy, even though you probably have enough equipment to replace it. There's just something that stays in your heart with that older equipment.
You know that's how the farm was built. Try to farm today with that kind of stuff. You'd never get anything done. I can remember hanging out with my dad when he was planting beans. He was planting with that M and a 4-row planter, and this is when I was 8, 9, 10 years old. I remember those days. I'm the OSHA officer now. They all tease me, but I remember just standing on the axle of that tractor. There was no fender on that M and just riding through the field with my dad as he planted. You wouldn't stay on forever because it was a bumpy ride, but it was still fun.
When your kids were younger, did they used to kind of complain about being stuck on those older tractors? I know when I was younger, I didn't appreciate the older equipment. Why am I getting stuck driving this piece of junk? But now that I'm older, I love driving that stuff.
We still farm with older equipment. I mean, I think our newest tractor, we run 8300, 8320. So what are those? Late 90s, early 2000 tractors. That's how we've made our, I don't know, carved out our niche, I guess. My husband is very mechanically inclined. He denies that he loves it, but he does love it. And our sons picked up the same skills. So that's one of the, I guess, keys, I think, to us being able to build what we have is not having a ton invested in all the latest, greatest. We've turned around and spent that more on technology. Our attitude's kind of been, if you can't get bigger, get better at what you got.
Yeah, my dad's the same way. He probably doesn't want to buy nice equipment because he's got a lot of cattle, but his newest tractor's an 8430, and I don't know if he's ever bought a tractor with less than 7,000 hours. And you probably experience it too. You might lose a day or something having to fix older equipment. That's a lot easier to swallow than spending 200 grand, 300 grand on a new tractor.
Absolutely. You talk about that older equipment, you might jump in the 4450 to do something. I'm like, ooh, this gap's kind of tiny. The newer ones are even better than that. I don't even want to step in one of them. I need to be content where I'm at.
You talked about technology. What's some of the best technology that you've brought to the farm to not only make your life easier, make you more efficient, more profitable?
Hands down, auto steer is the best thing that ever came to the farm. If there's only one you could choose, that would be it. Just the efficiency, how many longer hours you can work, without a doubt. Without a doubt, I wouldn't give that up in the world. In fact, I actually missed this spring because I tore my Achilles tendon and had to have surgery. And so that was a killer because I just love that smell of that dirt in the spring. But I have a cousin who recently retired who's pretty good with equipment. But he says, I'm not touching that thing. I'm not touching that auto steer. And my husband's like, it'll be all right. So my husband gets in, and my husband's not overly good at explaining things. But before my cousin went out, I kind of talked him through this monitor. And my husband doesn't actually use this particular monitor in anything he usually runs. So he talked him through it, he got it, and he's kind of doing it. And he moved to the next field, and he calls me up. He says, can you talk me through this process again? And so I helped him get set up for the next field. And our next conversation is, man, that is the neatest thing I've ever seen. And he hadn't helped on the farm since my dad's 40-20 days too much. So it's just kind of cool, his reaction. He's not somebody who uses technology at all much, uses his phone and looks things up on the internet. He was scared of it and then realized just how simple it was.
Do you remember when you started using GPS and auto steer, maybe light bar, and what kind of system it was?
We kind of just went ag leader. So we had the light bar. We got our first yield monitor was an Ag Leader PF 3000. If you've ever used one, it's one of those, you poke the buttons to move the letters, to move the numbers. It was the most archaic thing, but it was the best thing on the market at the time. And yeah, so I think we've been using yield monitors since like 2000.
Isn't it incredible how fast technology changes? You could compare GPS systems like to cell phones. I got my first cell phone in 2007. My dad might have started running auto steer a couple years before that, but his first auto steer was on a little PDA phone, and it had the little thing you mounted on the steering wheel that kind of turned. But it's just incredible how fast stuff moves along, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess our first one was a motor that hooked onto the steering wheel. It was an Ag Leader motor. I think that was our first GPS system.
Did it replace the steering wheel, or did it have like the little knob that
It had the little knob. You didn't want to get your finger in it or roll it right in.
That's exactly what we started. If you'd go turn around on the corner, you'd have to run your fingers underneath of it, and it'd be moving a million mile an hour.
Yeah, it was. I kind of forgot till you started talking, and that all came back to me. I'm getting old. I can't remember everything quite like I used to.
I always had challenges when I'd turn around on the end. If I'd come in a little too tight, it'd try to overcorrect and always kick off. Oh, it's a nightmare.
It was until you got the handle of it. I tried to mess with I love technology, so I was always kind of messing with the buttons, trying to figure out what I needed to do.
So you love technology. I don't want to make this too much about how to farm or whatnot, but how would you explain to other farmers what percentage is nose in the books, looking at yield maps, all that stuff compared to actually out with the hands-on labor?
We're a different operation in the fact that my husband and I have completely different strengths, and he's the mechanics agronomy field guy, and I'm the office accounting technology thing. And so we spend more time on it than the average person because a farmer wouldn't normally have that kind of time if he had to take care of everything else. Does that make sense? So I don't think that I'm a fair example, but I bring in all the maps. I look at them. I say, I can tell my husband, I shouldn't say that because he's got the yield monitor. He likes to be in the combine just to know what's going on in fields. But I spend a fair amount of time on finances. I think that's an important thing, and more important than ever moving forward. I mean, it used to be you could make a living working hard. Now you got to make sure you're working smart too. I bought my first farm accounting software package in 1998, and I have been tracking inputs to fields since. You just get an understanding a lot more of what's going on in your operation.
What farm accounting software did you start off with?
FarmWorks.
FarmWorks? Oh yeah, we're definitely familiar with that. I haven't got to experience it, but that's like the legacy farm that nobody wants to leave behind.
Well, you find a replacement for it. It's tough. It's tough. I've tried to teach my son it, and he's 28. He grew up with technology. And this was built in the 90s. It's got that kind of DOS look to it. He fought through it a couple years for me, but yeah, we've moved on for him since then.
So you're using Traction now?
Yes.
And how do you get along with it?
Good. Good. I mean, the amount of efficiency you gain. FarmWorks, you can't just import the transactions from your bank and all that kind of thing. When making the transition to Traction, the first thing I did was auto pay all my bills. Before, I wanted to pay my bills because I entered my checks then, and that I took care of my bookkeeping all at once. Now with Traction, you just kind of auto import all your banking and credit card stuff, and the amount of time that saves you is pretty impressive. And I still has stick a USB, import all my maps. Now, since FarmWorks isn't getting updated anymore, it doesn't import everything because they don't have the drivers and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that efficiency is, and it's going to be more important. I mean, the bigger farms get, the more things progress. Efficiency in those operations can be huge.
It makes you more efficient. Does it help you make better decisions on input purchases or whether you're doing things right or wrong?
I don't know that we necessarily look at input purchases, but you can track your costs by field, your cash rent farms, know how you're shaping up on those, and I think that's huge. We use that a lot just to analyze our cash rent farms.
Hopefully the landlords aren't wanting to see the exact numbers of how much you're making or spending per acre, but some of them might.
Well, you know what? If we have a good year, we bonus them. You got to take care of the people that take care of you. That's something else I think we've built our farm on. People matter to us. We even have a couple rental houses, and I even try to become, I don't want to be friends, but polite, kind, do something for them, just to make them know that we care, not just that they're a renter, because I think that helps them take care of the house better. They have a personal connection to you, and I think that means something. So with our landlords, we pick up the phone. We grow sweet corn every year. We take them all some sweet corn. Christmas time, I make cinnamon rolls. We take cinnamon rolls. I mean, we just try to do little. It sounds cheesy and dumb, but I think that you take the time to actually do that, and they're all older, so they really appreciate that.
It's pretty natural for people to look out for themselves. And if you can take the time getting to know somebody, spending time with them, show them that you care, and ask them how their day was, ask them about their life, it really helps build a connection and kind of that trust factor. And it goes a long ways, especially in agriculture sales too.
It does. Well, that's one of our values on our farm is just treat people right. This world's not all about what we get. It's about what we can do and what we can do to make other people's lives better. When I pick up my scale ticket in the fall, I just tell them thank you every time. I mean, because some of the farmers come in and they're grumbling about this and grumbling about that. And you're appreciated because that's just a perspective we like to take.
Farmers get grumpy.
Well, I might get a little grumpy by the end of fall, too. We've been blessed with some pretty good years the last few years, so the only grumpiness is from tired.
Gets to be some long days, doesn't it?
It does. You start the day packing lunches, which is my absolutely least favorite thing to do, and then work all day and then come home and try to figure out what you're having for supper yet. For a month straight, it gets old.
To build on how you treat people, it sounds like you treat people very well. How do you want to be remembered as a person in the community, your farm operation? Eventually, it'll be passed on. How do you want to be remembered as a farmer and a person?
I guess just a good, honest, hardworking person who is very passionate about her causes and took care of her little corner of the world. Did her best to take care of her little corner of the world.
People don't understand that all it takes, if you're just getting to know somebody or doing business with somebody, is to rub them wrong one time to turn them off for life. And it's hard to win them back, isn't it?
And we are so blessed. Just living in this country, we are blessed. There are so many people who just need a little boost in life, and just being kind to them is better than what they might have had when they were home. You don't know what anybody's going through, so I just think that's important.
That's a great point. Even dealing with other farmers, you don't know the struggles they're going through. Everybody looks good from the outside looking in. You just don't understand until you actually walk a mile in their shoes. What part of the farm carries the most pride for you? Is it family legacy, just taking over as a third generation farmer?
I have a day or two every fall that just really pulls at my heartstrings. And we had an opportunity to buy part of Tony's grandfather's farm a number of years ago, and they have the most beautiful subsets on that farm. I don't know what it is. But when I'm farming out there, and I run the auger wagon in the fall, and my husband runs the combine, and that in itself is kind of cool. We've done it so long. We have radios, but most of the time our radios are just for chit-chatting anymore. We just know what each other's doing. And there's that sense of connection we have during the fall and the spring that's just special. I don't know how to describe it. By the end, we're both kind of tired of each other. But one day I can just specifically remember this beautiful sunset's coming. My dad's driving the truck. I'm loading the truck, and I'm thinking, wow, how good do I have it? I'm working with my husband. I'm working with my father. That's just something special that not everybody gets that. Doing something you love in this beautiful country, out in the country, in the fields, sunset, I don't know. Sounds cheesy, whatever it is, but that's me. And then fast forward a number of years, replace my dad with our son. And I feel like I'm the luckiest person in the world. I really do. And not everybody gets these opportunities in life.
That sounds pretty incredible.
Yeah. It's a special spot for me, without a doubt. But as far as the other thing about the pride in the farm, I would guess that we did it our way. We didn't chase after land. We let it come to us. We didn't have to have the fanciest equipment. We ran older equipment, even if that meant spending a few more hours working on it. Yeah. We took on technology, did a lot more with it than most other people. We used that to build our farm or to make us more efficient. I don't know. You just hear bigger, stronger, faster. And I hope there'll always be a place for just a family farm. We've never had any desire to manage 5 employees. That to us would take the fun out of it. It's working together as a unit to pull it all together and make it all happen. That's what's cool.
Do you ever think about from generation 1 to where you're at? There's obviously been a lot of very good years. Do you ever think about all the challenging years that ended a lot of operations and you being able to endure those? Do you ever think about that entire history of the farm and all it's been through?
We've had actually 2 tornadoes hit our farm. Isn't that kind of crazy? First one hit in 1945 and took the top off the barn. It was a block barn, so it's been replaced with wood. In 95, in our first year of farming, one hit, took the roof off of our machine shed and just dropped it all on top of it. Those aren't really tough on, I don't know. They add stress to your life, things like that. It's kind of interesting. The first year that my husband planted for my father was a drought year. I mean, the worst drought my dad's ever experienced, and there was my husband out planting it. But yeah.
What year was that?
1988.
1988. I've heard about that.
I don't really focus on that. We try to keep the positive angle on things. I mean, you're going to have bumps and challenges and things like that. But if you let those define you, then you're going down the wrong path. I don't know. I guess the wrong path in life. I mean, shortly after we married, we were living at the place with the pastures. So my husband, I think we bought 10, 15 head of cattle. Bought them from a local veterinarian. Good one day, next day, not well. They got some rare blood disease and just started dying on us.
Really?
Yeah. But, so we got them shipped off as fast as we could, I guess. Our first farm, we tried to buy at a public auction. We bought it at a public auction. And 2 years later, we never got clear title to it. One of the family members wouldn't sign off. So we've had our own struggles, I guess. But if there's a will, there's a way. And I guess if you focus on those struggles, you got to just keep chugging forward. And I think farming's just one big character lesson in general anyway. You can let it build you positively or you can let it build you negatively.
Life's not easy. You can either get down about yourself when times get tough, give up, or you can just endure the pain for a little bit and use it as a positive to build up to be better than you were before. When you took over the farm, was there ever a thought in your mind like, why am I doing this? Maybe it got difficult at first and you're like, oh my gosh, why did I agree to take over the farm?
I hate to say this, but I don't think we ever had that feeling. I mean, we had those bumps in the road like the cows and not being able to get title to our first farm that we were so excited to be purchasing, but I don't think so. Maybe my husband would say different. I was still working on a farm when we first started, so maybe I didn't endure some of those moments with him.
What were you doing working off farm when you were doing that?
I worked for a local grain elevator, did all the accounting for those financials, and yeah, little whatever was needed.
So you've always been pretty good with the books then?
Yeah, something. I majored in ag business in college, went to work for a local grain elevator back here because I was marrying a local boy. My first job was sent to go to one of their satellite locations to computerize all their accounts receivable. They had some seed and feed business up there. The lady was in her 60s, had been in that operation forever, and I'm thinking, I got to computerize her. It's just one of those things, make friends, be positive, and all worked out. So, yeah, and then I worked for that one for quite a while, and then I switched to another one right down the road from us. If you'd have told me numbers were my thing, I probably would have majored in accounting, but then I think, oh, that would have been kind of boring. I call myself a passionate number cruncher, but I don't think that's something I'd want to do every day.
This might be hard to think about, but if you weren't at the farm and you could go back and pick another career choice that's not farming, we don't want to make it easy on you. What do you think you would do? What passions you have outside of farming?
I love to learn, so I can be passionate about a lot of things. I would probably be doing, obviously, I'd probably be doing something with number crunching because it was something I didn't even realize I had, because at that grain elevator, I computerized them. Another bookkeeper at the main office was going to retire, so they wanted someone to kind of start taking over. So then they started having me put together monthly financial statements. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool, putting all these puzzle pieces together. So that became a natural fit. So that's probably where I would have ended up. But my husband's work construction, and I love old farmhouses, and nothing makes me sadder than driving around and seeing them falling apart. And we've saved a couple, and I don't know, maybe we'd have went that way, buying houses, renting them, buying them and flipping them. I just love to take something and make it better.
Still in the original house?
This is the original farmhouse, yes.
Isn't it incredible how stuff built back then just lasts so much better than stuff built today?
We've made a lot of changes to it. My dad made a lot of changes to it when he moved in, and then we've made a few more just to make it more fit for today's world. When my cousin was back here this few summers ago, we still have some of the original woodwork upstairs. A lot of it had to be gone because we had to re-drywall, plasters falling off, things like that. But I mean, for him to see the original woodwork in this house, he's like, you had to take a picture of it, FaceTime his dad, show him that. It's just kind of fun. I don't know, maybe I'm just kind of cheesy like that.
There's just sentimental value to stuff like that, and it survived a couple of tornadoes.
Yes, it did, didn't it? When it hit when we were here, it just it knocked out a window.
That's it.
We had to reshinkle our roof. Not that it did serious damage to it, but it's the mess that it creates. Everything's strewn everywhere.
I'm sure a lot of people have experienced the farming community when tornadoes go through. Within an hour, the whole neighborhood's there helping you pick up and stuff. It's pretty incredible how
It is.
it can bring people together.
That is the beauty of small town America that I don't think people really get. Like I said, our neighbor up at the cabin, I mean, he just doesn't have a clue how simple our life can be, but how great it can be. We don't have to have everything at our fingertips, be super close to things to enjoy a really good life.
It'd be pretty easy working a 9 to 5 and just completely shutting your brain off from work at 5 o'clock, wouldn't it?
Well, some days we think that might be all right, but no, I think I like what I do.
So what keeps you coming back every year?
Just the love of it. I've said for me, the hardest thing for me this spring is just the smell of that dirt as you're working it up. I tried to explain that to one of the nurses when they're taking care of me, and they kind of just looked at me like I'm foreign. But there's just nothing quite like that. And to be with your family and do things together and build something yourself, there's just nothing quite like it. We're building on from what previous people in our family did. I said, I think every generation leaves it a little better, and hopefully just continue to do that.
It's not just the smell of dirt. The smell of dirt just brings back memories, right?
Yeah, this is what our family has done. This is what our family's built.
Do you ever think about some of the memories of when you were young and starting to follow your dad around on the farm?
Yeah. I had a sister 7 years older and a brother that's 5 years older, so I tended to go if If my brother was going, I was going too. So that's how I probably ended up tagging along more. But we used to have an old machine shop out here. I'm not talking today's modern machine shop, a big oversized garage, taller, wider, bigger door kind of thing, just pull something in. I can remember being out there. It was a greasy, dirty environment. It wasn't these spiffy, clean things that you have today. There was always a hydraulic floor jack. And as a kid, I just remember love pumping that thing up and then standing on it and turning that knob and giving myself a ride down. As corny as that is, I had so much fun doing that. Just hanging out there with the guys.
I did the same thing as a kid too.
Did you?
Yeah.
Maybe it's not that uncommon. I love that thing. And like I said, going out with Dad when we were planting beans, back then your beans came out of a wagon. They were bin run beans. My brother and I would have these various bushel baskets and little kind of oval kettles that all farms had sitting around in buckets. And our job while Dad was out planting was to get those all ready so that when he came in, he could just pour them in. And then, so the guys would do that. And my job was to take a handful of inoculant and put it in each row. And I just thought I was important. That was my job.
What's one of your favorite memories with your dad from early when you were younger?
I remember always riding along with him, and maybe we're just going to check fields or something, and he'd always slip over and say, "You want to drive a little bit?" So he still ran the gas pedal and the brake, but he just let me take over the steering wheel. That's probably one of our legacy memories. But we were coming to a viaduct where the railroad went over, and I said, "Dad, I'm not doing this." And he says, "Yes, you are." And I said, "No, I'm not driving." He says, "Well, if you let go," he says, "George is driving." I said, "Who's George?" He says, "I don't know who George is, but he's going to be driving." So... And so I drove through the viaduct, and looking back at that was his first attempt to get me to conquer fear, I guess. I don't know. Believe in myself.
As kids, it's hard to understand that they're not going to make you do something that's flat out going to hurt you. I have the same thing with my niece trying to get her to shoot a gun. You think I'm trying to hurt you by getting you to shoot this gun?
He still was sitting in the driver's seat. He could have grabbed the wheel, but yeah, I was petrified of going through that concrete tunnel.
How old were you when you started running equipment on the farm?
This is kind of a funny story. My dad was not big on me running a lot of equipment, believe it or not. He always brought cousins to the field. I remember 3 specific jobs I had. So I really became a true active farmer when my husband took over. But I had 3 jobs that he let me do. Back in the 80s, you had a lot of government ground. They paid you to make a ground idle. So I got to sit in the back of the end gate seeder and keep it full of seed while he went over these hills and hollers. I thought it was the greatest thing ever, because I got to help Dad. I got to run the sickle mower to clip all those acres. I think on that old M with the sickle mower, because you had to clip them. I got to clip those.
What do you mean clip?
I think at the end of the year, you had to cut the grass, something like that. So we had an old sickle mower on the M, and so I got to run that to cut this tall grass. It was a job nobody else wanted, but he certainly didn't want it. And I got to spread manure.
There you go.
I think attached to that same M. But you know what? I didn't really have that huge desire. If you'd have told me I'd be as active on the farm as I am today, even having grown up on it, I would have never believed it. I would have always kind of been the bookkeeper and that kind of thing. But to be as deep in as I am now, I didn't have that on my radar. I mean, I was happy that my husband took over. I kind of wanted to be married to a farmer. I had a love affair with the lifestyle, but not all that work. Yeah, one thing led to another, and I just learned one more thing. And my husband tried to get me in the sprayer. This when he had a pull behind, and he was going to teach me that. And then we go through the first waterway, and those booms are going like this. And I said, done. I'm done learning. Because I know if I learn that job, you're going to make it mine for life. So I said, that's it.
That's the one thing that's always kind of made me nervous, too, is spray. And there's a lot that can go wrong.
Yeah, our son, we bought a self-propelled one probably 7-8 years ago, actually from our local grain elevator crop supply place right down the road from us. And my husband and son went down. My son jumped in it, and my husband's never been in it since. So that's the day he gave up spraying. That was a good day for him. That's his least favorite job. Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong, especially if you don't get the tank mix right. You can kill off millions of dollars of stuff.
So that's what my husband does now. He's the tender operator, and my son sprays.
So a couple things before we wrap this up. If you could give any piece of advice to somebody who's maybe getting ready to take over the succession plan from their dad, what's one piece of advice you could kind of give to somebody else that has gone through what you did and taken over the farm?
Be grateful for your opportunity. Start with that. If you can be grateful for your opportunity, a lot of things in life will fall in place. I think it kind of goes back to the other things I've said. Treat people right and know your numbers.
Know your numbers. It's hard to understand farming. The way I look at it, there's a lot of luck involved getting started farming because
Absolutely.
if you don't have the legacy of a family farm or the connection, you just can't get started. You can't do it. You might be able to get started on livestock with buying 10 or so, but you just can't get started in a real crop operation on your own.
It would be very, very difficult. You'd have to have someone funding you a little bit to get you started. You got to have some money back there somewhere that says to get you going. But yeah.
Over your time farming, have there been any things that happened that you thought was a mistake at the time that just turned out to be maybe one of the best things that happened to the operation?
Well, I can't really think of that.
Maybe something that you didn't picture ended up being as good as it turned out.
I guess just the way it all turned out. You know, I never had any intention of being involved as I did. Like you said, you got to have a little luck along the way. It just all worked out. I don't know. Yeah, I wish I could come up with something prophetic there, but I can't.
No, that's actually great. I was kind of thinking of what you would say ahead of that, and that's exactly what I was thinking because you weren't planning on going on the farm, and as a transition, you were probably starting to figure out, but kind of went against the grain of what you were probably planning on doing in life, and probably the best thing that ever happened to you.
Yeah, I don't know that I wasn't planning. I was hoping maybe that someday my husband could take over, but it wasn't like we sat down and Dad and said, "Hey, we want to take over." It's just by my husband helping that first year, and they seemed to get along. It just kind of happened.
Had to make sure that legacy lived on, didn't you?
Yep, yep.
That's pretty incredible. So, what we're going to do, since we're wrapping this episode up for our listeners, we are going to try something called Pass the Mic, where each guest is going to, one, answer the question from the previous guest. Then we'll have Laura answer that question and then ask the question for the next guest. Since Laura is lucky enough to be our first guest, since I'm kind of a part-time farmer, I'm going to come up with this first question, and it's going to be a really difficult question, Laura, so I'm sorry. Looking back at all the years you've been on the farm, can you think of one year that challenged you more than any year, why that challenged you, and how that made you a better farmer?
Well, I didn't think I'd be able to come up with a challenge because I try to think positively. But 2009 was the biggest challenge, but we weren't alone. It was one of those years, I think it was late planting. We didn't start harvesting till maybe late October, I don't even remember anymore. I try to block that one out of my mind. Yeah, just trying to crunch out a crop that year. Everything was so wet, you couldn't get going. You're worried you're going to get pushed up. I think we finished middle of December that year. That was a miserable, miserable year. And lineups because dryers are backed up, because we haul everything to a commercial grain elevator. Get up early, get in line, get your 5 loads in for the day. How did it make you a better farmer? I don't know. Appreciate the good years. I don't know that there was nothing pleasant about that year. Yeah, I remember setting the alarm 5 o'clock, dark. I'm leaving for the kids are up out of bed to get in line, to get an extra load in, that kind of thing. That was miserable.
So it was a challenge from pre-planting all the way through harvest.
Yes, yes. Just the whole logistics and the time and the stress. And my dad was still helping then. He couldn't get up at 5 o'clock. He's old enough. He didn't want to get up at 5 o'clock to get those loads in.
So you'd get up bright and early and get those loads in. And then at the end of the day, when they shut down, would you just fill up every truck or wagon, the grain cart and everything?
We do that every night regardless. The elevator shuts us down at 7. We don't quit till everything's full. So while my husband's getting the combine ready, we're hauling. Our son drives a semi, but we also have a tandem. So in the mornings, I can help haul some of that if that's what's needed.
There you go. Well, I appreciate you answering that. It'd be kind of interesting to see all these people that come on, what some of their most challenging situations are, and just different perspectives. My goal is to eventually get somebody from, it might take a couple years, but how cool would it be to have a farmer from all 50 states come on and do something like this?
Wouldn't that be something? Because even right here in central Illinois, there's no 2 farms that are the same. Everybody has different values, objectives, ideas. Our daughter married a farm boy from North Dakota. We've learned about sugar beets. They raise a lot of edible beans up there. They're 10 miles from the Canadian border. They don't raise any corn up there. It's a whole different world, and we've just enjoyed learning that different world.
You probably don't have chopped up fields like some areas. Isn't there parts of North Dakota that just have 1,000-acre fields?
Well, I don't know, but they're as flat can be. You just wouldn't believe how flat the land is up there. They're in the Red River Valley, so they got some good dirt up there. And actually, we've been out to the farm, but haven't really actually drove around. But yeah, they're nice square fields. We have some of the best in Peoria County and some of the worst. My son today spraying 40 acres, and 5 different patches.
I'm sure your daughter likes being married into a farming operation, but it's not very warm up there where she's at.
Well, they were in North Dakota. They've actually moved back here now. He didn't go back to the family farm. He does grain marketing and merchandising for farmers. He has his own business, and she does too, both related to ag.
What's she do?
She started just doing agriculture advocacy for Illinois corn, where she's taking pictures and putting things. It kind of went viral. She kind of became a little sensation in her early years of college. So she ended up doing photo shoots on farms for farmers or for businesses. So she mainly does more for commercial now. And she set up a website that is called realagstock.com, and it's a place that businesses can buy a subscription and get pictures of real agriculture happening.
I did see that Hannah showed me. She does a lot of good work. So realagstock.com.
Yep. All of our kids and all of our son-in-laws are self-employed. So we're an interesting family. We always got something going on or hear about or dilemma or something.
Every farm and every family is unique. I appreciate you sharing that, learning a little bit about you. We don't want to bring people on to hear how to farm or give advice. We'll probably have some episodes like that, but we want to know who you are. And I feel like we did a good job capturing that, this recording. Before we send you off, what's your pass the mic question for the next person?
I have 2 of them, but I guess I'll go with farming and agriculture is changing so much now. And I think I've seen it so much so in the last 10, 15 years, the consolidation that's happening. So what are your hopes and dreams about the future of farming and agriculture in general?
That is a great question. And I don't know who's going to be answering that, but that's a great question. Just thinking about the past, and we're seeing it now with all the consolidations.
What's the future going to look like?
That's a pretty amazing question. I appreciate you coming on and being our first guest. I think it's going to turn out pretty good. I think conversation flowed smooth. We got to learn a lot about you and your legacy, and not only who you are as a farmer, but as a person, a mother, grandmother. So I'm really looking forward to getting this podcast edited and getting this out so people can hear it and you can share it with your family.
Well, thank you. I was a little nervous about it. This isn't normally my cup of tea, but I do love the family farm and it's all important to me. Thank you for having me.
All right. Appreciate you for joining us on episode number 1 and looking forward to keeping these coming.